Gonzalez. I don't remember the first time I met him. I just remember his freshman year. And I'm going to get this confused. You lived in Kinney or Tenney? Which one? Tenney. I would walk home, and I would see him walking, and he was a student. I'd just wave. He's a friendly guy, and he would wave back. And so that was the beginning. It was last part of his freshman year. I think he went to the launch party, and we were looking for academic coaches. And we just struck up this conversation, and since then, he has served as a student assistant for me for 2 years in UNIV. He has also served as an academic coach, although he burned me for UP this semester. But I thought I would list all of his accomplishments for you. But one of the things, if you know Michael, you know that he's heavily involved. And in trying to list the things, to be honest, because he has been, right now, you're teaching in UP, right? You're an RC. You're the president of Mosaic. What else are you doing that I don't know about? Soccer. I guess that's secondary, right? No. And he has some great videos. But one of the things I appreciate about him is, as a student assistant for me, the development that he has shown, but his initiative, his responsibility, and his creativity. Actually, probably the people in my class could say I could never show up and the class would be better if Michael just taught it. But I have I have learned to depend on him, and I really appreciate it. He's told me a little bit of his story, but I look forward to how God will be speaking through him. So, welcome, Michael.
When I asked Marcos to introduce me, I was told by many of his colleagues that he was going to cry. Thank God he didn't, because I had prepared just in case for his tears. But anyways, thank you, Marcos, for introducing me and not making me cry. And I also want to thank the worship team for letting me influence you guys this morning and mixing it with some Spanish. Thank you guys for that. So as I begin this morning, as I began preparing for this morning, I had many thoughts of what I can speak about. As many of you guys know, I always ask for advice. And so right away, when Lori emailed me, I said yes. And then 5 minutes later, I'm texting Ben and Pedro and Lexi and Marcos and everyone. I'm just like, what did I just say yes to? And so thanks to them and many conversations that we've had, I just decided to talk about myself, my story. And so today, I want to give you guys a little heads up. Scripture will be in Spanish. The first prayer will be in Spanish as well. And so, yeah, that's how it's going to kind of roll. But my story does not begin on November 26, 1997, which is my birthday, just so you guys know. My story begins many years before that. Many years before I was born, and it starts with my parents. So before we get into that, let's pray. Señor Jesucristo, hoy te quiero dar las gracias por dejarme estar en esta posición de hablar en capilla en frente de tantas personas. Te quiero dar las gracias por darnos otro día en este mundo para poder glorificar tu nombre. Te pido que por favor me ayudes durante esta mañana y que los que están hoy aquí te escuchen hablar por medio mío. Te pido esto y mucho más, y es en tu poderoso nombre. Amén. All right. So who's Gonzo, right? Like Marco said, I have a whole bunch of positions and stuff like that. So who is this guy? Some of you guys may know me as Gonzo the RC, Gonzo the Mosaic president, Gonzo the academic coach, Gonzo the teacher, or many may know as Gonzo this guy. Next slide. There you go. So you can't hear the audio, but it went from going like super low to just people just going crazy. So that's over in chills as I see it. So that was Webster's. We were playing at Webster. It was the conference semifinal, and I just remember, going into second half, everybody's just like, Gonzo, be ready. And outside, I was super calm and chill. I'm like, yeah, I got this. Inside, I was like freaking out. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Everybody expects me to save PKs. I don't know if I can do this. Thank God, everything worked out. I did not just block one, I blocked two. And I'll take credit for the miss because I scared the guy. I hope I did, but we'll leave it at that. So who am I? You know, I have been able to interact with many of you, because I've worn many different hats while being here. And I hope that, you know, in our interactions, whether that be in the classroom or events or on the pitch, I hope that my interactions with you were positive. And if they weren't, you know, shoot me a text, a message, an email, or see me after chapel and I'll fix it. Because as many of you guys know, I like having a positive view of me, people having a positive view of me. So I have been here at Greenville for 3 years now. This is my junior year. And so I've been able to really look back and see where I started and to where I am now. You see, I was not always this outgoing guy. Hold on, let me fix that. I was never this outgoing, good-looking guy. See, my freshman year, you could even ask my roommate, Bueno, I was that guy that would just leave his room to go to class, go back, leave his room to go eat, go back, leave his room for soccer activities, and as you may guess, I would go back to my room. So I didn't have many interactions outside of those circles, you know, and yeah. So I want you guys to realize how blessed we are to be here today and how blessed we are to be at Greenville. I know sometimes we're all like, we're in the middle of nowhere. You know, I'm a guy from Chicago, so I do miss being able to be in the city, seeing the beautiful skyline. Best city in the world, just to let you guys know. There you go. Yeah, there you go. Shy till I die. Be quiet, Moyo. And so it's hard to adjust leaving Chicago and coming here to the middle of nowhere, being surrounded by cornfields. But here I have really found community, and that's a word that we often hear when we talk about Greenville. So today, aside to kind of mixing the Spanish in, I want you guys to focus on 3 phrases that I will throw up in the projector. The first one is the phrase is immigrant parents. There it is. Okay, so I'm gonna start off. My mother was born in Guadalajara, Jalisco. If you guys don't know where that's at, they're known for their rich culture, mariachi, and tequila. Tequila we can enjoy once we graduate Greenville. Clarification, I am not telling you to go drink. Yeah, don't get ideas, guys. So my mom immigrated into the United States at the age of 24. She immigrated into Chicago, which is where she met my father. As soon as she got to Chicago, she started working. So she left her office job in Mexico, in Guadalajara, Jalisco, and came to Chicago and started working a factory job. Sometimes working up to 2 shifts to make ends meet. You know, she came in legally. She came in with the visa, tourist visa. But then God had a plan for her, which was to fall in love with this man. And on March 24th, 1990, they got married. And well, those are my parents. And so on June of 1994, she fixed her legal status into a permanent resident. Thank God. I asked her what was the hardest part of leaving Mexico. And she responded, having to adapt to the language, which she emphasized she still has not been able to master. And I can back that up. The fast-paced life. Some of you have been able to experience Mexico, whether they're studied abroad or just vacation. But the lifestyle in Mexico is very different. It's more chill, it's more relaxed, it's more personable. Here, it's fast-paced, work type stuff. So having to switch that whole lifestyle was a challenge for her. So, that's my mother. My father, now his story is a little bit more crazy. And it's a story, both my parents' story, it's something that I knew I hadn't shared with anyone because I didn't know it myself. So I had to do my research, and last night I was on the phone for hours talking to my parents. So my father's from a small town in the state of Guanajuato called Yuriria. And so I want you to think right now what you were doing at the age of 16. Many of you, or most of you, I think all of you, I hope, were your sophomore year in high school, right? So at the age of 16, my father made the decision to leave Mexico and travel to the United States. Now, unlike my mom, my father did not have a visa. He did not have the economic stability to afford to go through that process. And being the oldest male of the family, he needed to help, my grandpa provide. And so he decided to come at the age of 16, and he did it the illegal way, crossing the border. He went in through Tijuana, into San Diego. He spent a whole week lost in the cerros, which translates to like the hills, in the process. Now, when this whole week had passed, he was already on the U.S. side. So it's not always as pretty as it sounds. So my father had to, make it work with what he had. I didn't go too much in detail with what he had, but I'm assuming he didn't have anything more than just the clothes on his back and maybe a gallon of water. And that was for a week. So after that week, him and another guy that he had met in the group of undocumented immigrants crossing the border were like, you know what? This man, the leader of the group, which are called coyotes, they were like, you know what? We're just going to leave. We're going to leave. We're going to go to the highway, and we're going to hitchhike, or whatever you call that when you ask for a ride. The interesting thing, though, is my father and this man had already crossed the border. They were on the United States side. And so you think, oh, well, he's going to ask for a ride and go more into the United States. That was not the case. My father and that man decided, you know what, we're done with this. We're asking for a ride back to the border. And so that's what they did. They got in the car. The guy gave them a ride, left them by the bridge. And my dad was like, well, I'm in the U.S., but at 16 years old, I'm going back. And not only did he go back to Mexico, but he went all the way back to Yuriria. I don't blame him. I mean, I wouldn't have that courage to even try at the age of 16, going to a whole different country. So that was the first time. My father's a fighter. And so there was a second time. You see, he did it again, now with a different coyote. And this time, thank God, it was successful. Same thing, through Tijuana into San Diego. Made it through. From San Diego, he took a flight to Los Angeles. From Los Angeles, he flew to Chicago. Once he got to Chicago, he had a job at a supermarket. And from there, time passed. His very first week of working consisted of him obviously working. After work, he'd go home. The same clothes he had on his back. He'd go into the bathroom, clean it by hand, wash it by hand, hang it on the tub, and let it dry so that the next day it'd be ready to go. That was a full week of him doing that. So I asked him, how did you eat? Because he said he didn't have money. The only money he had was to be able to take the bus from work, to and from work. And so he said he would eat. He worked at a supermarket, so he would eat there, and make some food to take home. So that was his very first week here. Then he got his paycheck. Even to this day, when I asked him last night, what did you do with your first paycheck? I felt like he had a big smile on his face when he told me this. He said, I went to go buy a t-shirt, I went to go buy a pair of pants, and I went to go buy underwear, and got a haircut. And just thinking of that, at the age of 16, leaving your home, being in a whole different country, and still having the willingness, the motivation to do this, it's something I truly admire of my father. So as time passed, my father then got the news that his father, my grandpa, had passed away. So he's 17, about to be 18, I think, at this point. So he has to make the decision. I've made this long journey to be in Chicago. I have a stable job. I'm making money. Do I risk it and go back? So my father risked it and he went back. And he didn't go back walking. No, this man took a plane from Chicago to Mexico City. He spent a week back at home, said goodbye to his father, and then made the journey once again. Took a plane from León, Guanajuato to Tijuana, and then crossed the third time the border. So this man crossed the border 3 times, 2 being successful, 1 not being so successful. Sorry. So in 1986, under President Ronald Reagan, we had this thing called amnesty. So thank God, because of that, my father now also got legal residency, and he is now a permanent resident of the United States. As I mentioned earlier, in 1990, he married my mother, and then I popped out. Well, actually, my brother popped out first, then I popped out, and then my little sister popped out last. And so when I asked him what was the hardest part of leaving Mexico, he responded, leaving my family without money and resources. And he wanted to make it clear that he came because of necessity, because life over there was hard. Now, the next phrase I want you to remember is with their wings cut. So we have all been limited in many ways. We have all been able to experience not being able to do something at some point in our lives. My parents felt the same way when they came to the United States. For my mother, it was not being able to work where she liked, which was the office job. Not having the family unity that she had in Mexico because, my family was trying to adapt, to the lifestyle here in the United States. The struggle to express herself due to a language barrier. The language was the biggest wing that limited both of my parents. I asked my father the same thing, what were his limits when he came to the United States? He also mentioned the language. Getting the courage to leave his home, leave his family at such a young age, and then come to a whole new country not knowing anything or anyone. It's being in a completely different world. It's a little fun fact I'm going to add is that my pops, he didn't know what French fries were until he got to Chicago. And now he loves them. But he can't eat as many of them because he's diabetic now. Yeah, I know. And so those were their limitations. Those were their wings that were cut. Now, the final phrase I want you to remember is still teach their children to fly. There it is. So, our parents teach us a lot of things. Sometimes we take it for granted, and other times we don't notice it. See, I asked my parents what they did to help us fly. They responded, they wanted to make sure we were never alone. They made sure we were never alone while they were at work. They always made time for us. They showed us the benefits of hard work, and no matter how tired they were after work, they'd always be with us. They made sure we lived in safe, clean, and good neighborhoods in Chicago. They made sure our education was the best they can provide, and they made sure their love was not only felt, but shown. If you have a Bible, take it out, as I'm going to read in Spanish. It's Matthew chapter 25, verse 35. It says, Pues tuve hambre, y ustedes me dieron de comer. Tuve sed, y me dieron de beber. Anduve como forastero, y me dieron alojamiento. So if you don't have your English Bibles, whoops, I'm not translating. I'm just kidding. So out of that whole verse, the only thing I want you guys to remember is anduve como forastero y me dieron alojamiento, which can translate to I was a foreigner and you housed me. You see, my parents were foreigners to this country. They left their comfort of their home, comfort because it wasn't really comfortable, and came to this country for a better life. I was a foreigner. As I'm a first-generation college student, I self-taught myself to fill out college applications, FAFSA, and etc., like many of you have. I've also been in charge of figuring out this whole book system, and I think now my junior year, it might be the first year that I'm going to pay the least amount of money for these books. Thank God. Sorry, professors that I have here, nothing against you guys. But yeah, so you see, we have all felt foreign to a place or situation at some point in our life. Going away for school was something that was, crazy. In my family, not only was I the first generation college student, but I was the first to go away for school. All of this I say not making me special. I understand that there are some of you, or many of you, who knows, that have gone through the same situation. And so if you know anything about Mexican culture, Mexican family, parents try to keep you under their roof until you're basically married. And even then, they still might not let you out. So being here, it's an accomplishment already. So now let's take a look at Proverbs chapter 17, verse 9. Again, I'm going to read this in Spanish. It says, Al hombre le toca hacer planes, y al Señor dirigir sus pasos. So, as I was about to graduate high school, I had no idea of coming to a four-year college or university. Did not cross my mind. For many reasons. I don't know what was the whole process of college. I don't know if my parents had the money for it. And I simply did not know if I was ready to leave home. So, then, one day, I got invited for a college showcase at my high school the night before. Somebody called me. He's like, hey, we need a goalie. You want to come? I'm like, dude, I got nothing to do. I'll go. I got there. I played. I played great, I think, the first 3 games, and then I was super tired. So the last 2 games, I was just like, eh. But those first 3 games were what mattered, because shortly after the showcase was over, I was approached by, you guys, they're in our conference, McMurray. So their coach came up to me and was like, hey, man, like, we'd be interested for you to come play. Here's my contact info. Let's keep in touch. At that point, I got home with the biggest smile on my face. I told my dad, I'm going to go play college soccer. That's something that was way, way, way out of this world for them. And then not only that, a couple weeks, like maybe 1 or 2 weeks later, I get an email from Coach Swift here. It was like, hey, man, we'd like to set up a visit for you and these other guys. I was like, oh, like now I have options. Now it's not, I'm just not going to McMurray. No, I have options now. I'm like, I can go to community college if I want, play soccer there, maybe. Or I can go to Greenville, play soccer there. Or I can go to McMurray and play soccer there. I was like, wow, thank God. And so, at that point, I made the decision to come to Greenville. And I strongly believe I made the right decision. You see, now I am here at Greenville going into my last spring semester of classes, because 1 year from now, I will hopefully, if everything goes as planned, will be starting my student teaching in the spring of 2020. And as we look at Proverbs, I had the plan to go to community college, but God guided my steps, which was Greenville. My life plan has changed dramatically as well. You see, when I got here, I was like, I'm just going to graduate in 4 years. Deuces, going back to Chicago, go teach at my high school, go coach at my high school, and I'm done. Like there, happily ever after, right? Now, the idea of possibly getting a master's has come into my mind, continue my education, and possibly not even look into teaching as a job, look into something bigger and better. Who knows? And so, as I said, my life plans have changed. And now, I don't know what God has in store for me. I just really don't. No, I have learned to leave things in God's hands. And there's a picture that I have on the slide of, it's like foggy and there's like a cross. Oh, no, not that one, the other one. There you go. Thank you. So that picture was actually taken at that Webster game that I showed earlier. I didn't know about this picture until after the game was over and was posted on social media. But as you can see, it's in God's hands. And I truly believe that night, everything was in God's hands. The fact that we went all the way to PKs and that was my time to shine and I was prepared, it's something that I will definitely cherish and take with me for the rest of my life. So I've learned that. And that was not the first time that I have learned to leave things in God's hands. See, whenever we say something about the future, in my family, we have this custom to say, si Dios quiere, o primero Dios, which means if God wants, or God first. My mom has taught me to never get mad at God, because he knows what he is doing. And so she always says, solo Dios sabe por qué pasan las cosas. So which translates to only God knows why things happen. So I have learned that whenever things don't go planned, like as I would like them, I never be like, God, why? Or this. I'm just like chilling. I'm just like, God, you got this, man. You only know why this happens. And so and only God knows why things happen, and that's why I left my house. So my freshman year, I can still remember with tears in everybody's eyes in my car as we were parked in the DC parking lot, my parents and my family saying bye to me. My mom didn't physically say it, but I knew she that's all that was in her mind. And she's all like, it's in God's hands, and I'm leaving you here because he knows what he is doing. And so my parents have seen the great man that I have become, and they have seen the desire of a better man that I want to be in the future. So why do I tell you all this? You might ask, why am I telling you the story of me, of my parents? You might think, oh, my parents never crossed the border. My parents were born here. Yes, correct. But their intentions and maybe some of their struggles are similar to yours. Yes, my parents may have had a tougher time, but they still pulled through. And now I'm here today. You see, our parents go through so many tough times to see us succeed. So I want you to take these phrases that I mentioned earlier. If you put those together, it says, there's a quote somewhere. No, back one more. Well, I'll pop up at some point. All right, so the quote goes like this. Immigrant parents, with their wings cut, still teach their children to fly. Let that sink in for a bit. This quote was said by some dude called Damian Leon. I have no clue who this guy is. I Google searched him. I think he's just a normal guy, but I'm going to give him credit because this quote is awesome. And it basically tells the story of my life. But again, you guys might not be able to relate because your parents were not immigrants. So I want you to take that first part that says immigrant parents and take that out and put your parents' name in it. Because all our parents have had their wings cut in one way, shape, or form. You see, as we start this spring semester, for some of you, this is your last. For others, this is your very first spring semester. Regardless of the case, I want you to make sure that your parents' sacrifices were worth it. Whenever you feel down, whenever you feel stressed, overwhelmed, and it's okay to feel that already with 4 days into the semester, because I sure feel that already. Think about everything your parents have done for you to be here. See, I think about my parents every day as I go to school, as I do everything that I do, because I know what they went through. And so I don't want all their struggles, all their stories, and their sacrifices to go to waste. And so now I'm at Greenville today, and I proudly say that I'm a son of immigrant parents. And with that, I leave you today that my parents were immigrants, but that doesn't mean that your parents didn't have struggles. So take your parents' struggles and help that motivate you as we start the spring semester. Next week is the first full week of spring semester. And, I hope that you take that and continue to keep that engine going. Because at the end of the day, I always picture this is that hopefully by next year, crossing the stage, looking out to the crowd and seeing my parents there, and I guarantee you they're going to be crying. But the joy that I'm going to feel inside, of being able to say, you went through all that just to see me cross the stage. Thank you. So thank you guys very much. Have a good day. You're dismissed.